Welcome to Leading with Curiosity. Command and control leadership is dead. We interview leaders, entrepreneurs, and executive coaches challenging old paradigms and fostering cutting-edge leadership. Here's your host, certified executive coach, Nate Leslie.
Welcome to the show, everybody. My name's Nate Leslie, and today I have a friend and guest, Howie Outerbridge, with us. Howie's the managing director at Logan HR in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. He's a certified Canadian counselor and associate certified coach. His education's in science, teaching, counseling, and a doctorate in education. He specializes in career and transition counseling, career management, executive coaching, LinkedIn, branding, just to name a few. Today, we're going to explore certified coaching in career transition, in his own leadership, and the differences between counseling and coaching. Howie, welcome to the show.
Nate, thanks. You know, there was one thing that I was really hoping you were going to highlight in my intro, and you left out, and it was the number of goals that I scored in the rec hockey league, right? That was going to be a really big part of my intro. What happened?
Every story has to have an arc, and that was going to be the peak of it. So, spoiler, let's jump. Wow. Let's confuse everybody with executive coaching and recreational hockey coaching right off the hop. And let's go straight to rec league hockey. Where would that have happened if you had scored a lot of goals, which I have a feeling you didn't? Where would that have theoretically taken place?
Well, this would have been on the North Shore of course, British Columbia, so North Vancouver in the rec hockey league, in the co-ed hockey league, of course, where I played with my wife and her identical twin on the same line. So, we had a little bit of the Sedin twin thing going on. So I was always left out because I didn't have that twin intuition that they talk about, which I've seen in action on the ice.
Well, things work out for a reason, and you're so good at some other things that we're going to talk about today. So, maybe we can just leave that behind us and move forward. Yeah.
Sounds good. Out. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Absolutely. Let's cool. leave that. Let's leave that out.
Awesome. So I'm curious, first and foremost, you and I met at Railroads University in the Certified Executive Coaching Program. And I'm curious about the impact that has had on the client experience at Logan.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I got to say, heading into the Royal Roads program, I was a little skeptical, I'll admit. I 20 years of counseling, credentialed counseling, suffered through a doctorate, had been working in various helping roles over the years. So when I looked at the coaching program, I was skeptical. But, there was something that I know you've walked away with a lot as well, but at the heart of it, there is this practice, right? This methodology that I apply now in a much more disciplined manner when I'm working with my clients at Logan, and the impact on them is just I think a clearer, crisper experience that they have. So that, I think, is at the heart of how it's impacted the client experience.
It's funny, as you mentioned that, I think you and I were paired up on one of the first days where we literally started to have to practice the art of asking questions. And it sounds simple, and we were clumsy. We were clumsy at it as a trained counselor yourself too. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about what type of client comes to Logan and what you can help with, if we sort of focus maybe on the senior leaders?
Yeah, for sure. So, our firm really were two parts, right? So it's the coaching, executive coaching practice. So senior leaders that are looking for some support, are looking to grow in a certain area. So that's sort of the classic coaching client, executive client that we would work with. I would say in the Vancouver market, our firm is known for the work we do in the career transition space. So you're an executive, you come into the office on a Wednesday morning, HR knocks on your door. Next thing you know, you're kind of, you're packing your bags and you've had your last day at the office. So a lot of people, this happens in an unexpected manner, and it can be quite sudden and traumatic for them. So the coaching shifts in, there's a little bit of perhaps grief counseling at the beginning. And then we kind of shift into, okay, so how has that impacted your brand, the next chapter, your family life, where you're choosing to live, So that would be the other executive client that we would work with, someone who has experienced unexpected job loss and is now looking to have a brand strategist slash coach slash grief counselor work with them to support them.
Right. So you've got the branding. A lot of them probably, if they've had a job position for a long time, haven't had to think about finding a job, resume, LinkedIn presence. What is their brand? Is that does that come suddenly clear to them?
You know, it's one of the things that makes working with people so fascinating is just the range of experiences that we have, right? And so our clients are no different. You know, we've had people that have walked into those meetings that are wobbly-kneed and really have a problem even communicating. And we have people that walk in and are ready to they're ready to get to work. So much of it depends on, you know, the resilience that people have, the experience that they have dealing with very stressful, unexpected situations. But yeah, for the most part, you know, we work with people. There's a buffer. We're able to connect with people in a way where they feel like they can be vulnerable. They can talk about some critical things, and then we can get to work in a very strategic manner on their brand and on the next step.
And just to put it in context, are a lot of these clients coming to you as part of their kind of severance, or they've found you on their own and they're gonna fund it? I'm sure people are just curious how someone ends up walking through your door. Yeah,
and you know, we it's for the most part, it's you know, it's a package that's provided by the organization as a way to support a departing employee. You know, we again, when you do good work in a small city like Vancouver, word gets around. So we have just a web of alum that have experienced the Logan program and talk about it. So that leads to we've got, you know, my son's at home, you know, he can't find work, to, yeah, I've got another executive that is looking to make a change on her own and needs a little bit of support. So it's a bit of everything, you know, a bit of everything.
Yeah. If we shifted back to what you're bringing to the table, like many of us, you're wearing a few different hats. I've heard branding, I've heard counselor, especially in the early stages of it, in kind of the grief counseling mode, and then your executive coaching skills. What do you do when you're working with a client to just kind of articulate which one of those hats you're wearing?
Sure. And it's, you know, it's critical. And I think it's at the heart of being in that coach seat, right? You know, I've learned over the course of my career, you know, there are multiple hats that you wear, you know, student, parent, athlete, you know, friend, and coach, right? So it's pretty clear when I'm in that coach, and this is, you know, going back to the first part of this methodology, this discipline that we've learned and we've adopted as coaches. It's quite clear for me, you know, if I'm in that coach mode, then, you know, I'm going to talk about confidentiality, and we're going to establish the contract, et cetera. So it's very clear for my clients, you know, who I am, as opposed to whether I'm writing a proposal or whether, you know, I'm talking to one of our account reps about something else. So yeah, you know, what's interesting though, is that I'm sure you found this as well, is that there's this spillover. So I've had, you know, whether it's my daughter at home or a few of the coaches that I work with here, you know, they're like, wow, that was a coach question. Where did that come from? Yeah. So it does spill over into other elements, but at the heart of it, this Royal Roads program and this coaching approach really has helped me with, you know, managing our teams and managing relationships. It's also made me a much better proposal writer. I'll just say that right now.
Oh, well, tell me more about that.
Well, you know, in the past, right, I would be tasked with writing coaching proposals. So, you know, we're going to approach an organization and bid on a contract. And before going through the coaching program at Royal Roads, you know, again, you don't have the insight into the discipline and the methodology and the language, or you haven't run executives through a 6-month coaching program. And so you might not have the best sense of what the cadence might look like. So having been through the program, you know, being immersed in the literature, and now having coached a number of executives myself, I've got a much better sense of what a successful 6-month coaching engagement looks like. And that just leads to stronger writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Seeing that journey that has to happen. This is about behavior and a way of seeing the world, a way of seeing your own situation and the world around it. Sometimes in 1 hour, awesome breakthroughs happen. And sometimes it's in the work that they do in between sessions. And so I can see that you go from like, what could we do around a table right now to what could happen? What could be different 6-8 months from now if we took the time to kind of map it out like that? That's what's kind of coming to mind as the coaching journey, as you describe that proposal writing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, back to being skeptical, right? Heading into Royal Roads and not really sure, I did a ton of research like you probably did on the program and talked to people that had come out of the program that's still a little skeptical, but again, just another concrete way that the Royal Roads program has changed me. And, our firm, we had a big coaching win last year. We won one of the proposals that I wrote came through in the end, which is, I think it's nice to have those concrete examples of, that actually did make a change, as indicated by that most recent proposal. So, yeah.
Can you remember a moment when you went from skeptical to, oh, I get it, I see the value of this, like, wow, okay, I'm in, from skeptical to bought in? Do you remember a moment?
Ooh, good question. I don't know if there was one moment in particular. I think it was a combination. It was a combination of, I'm not sure if you remember the exercise that we did, but there were just piles of powerful question cards. And the exercise was, without any sort of order, was just to randomly start asking each other these questions. And what was remarkable was it didn't matter the order or what pile the card came from or when you were supposed to ask the question. If you just asked someone one of these powerful questions, it was remarkable the impact that it had on them. And so I experienced that going through that exercise, but also, asking those questions, could see it in people. So that was one. I think the other thing was again, back, I've used this word a few times now, the methodology, right? And the understanding of, this is how much time we have, and let's establish what we're going to talk about, and let's work our way through this contract. Let's work our way around this topic that you want to explore during that time. But to be very intentional about asking, midway through, how are we doing? And at the end, how did we do making headway on this? So those are just, that also added to the aha of, wow, this coaching practice and methodology is very powerful.
I had two moments. One, in our program, we have a colleague who we were watching a demo, and there was just this moment after a question that could have been interpreted in a number of different ways, just this moment of clarity. And I don't remember, or don't know if you remember the belly laugh that suddenly came after, like, followed sadness. He was there. There's a real struggle. There was a real issue. And then suddenly this belly laugh in a moment of clarity, like, I've got it, that he wouldn't have come to without that conversation. And it was, career oriented and mixing of career and home life, everything kind of coming together, which was really cool. Yeah. The other day I watched coach demo in part of facilitation, a company called the Roy Group out of Victoria that I recently partnered with. And the woman had a training from Australia, but also accredited with the ICF, with the International Coach Federation. And watching the demo as someone who had training other than ours, nail it in a way that was awesome and very in line with the methodologies. I was like, okay, good. It was fun to see someone really nail it and observe all these marks that were sort of being hit in the conversation and being really helpful in a way that lined up with the ICF, what the competencies that we're trying to hit. This, let's steer back. We're getting into the details a little bit that might be overwhelming people that are just kind of dabbling in this executive coaching thing. Might be a good segue for you to delineate the difference the fundamental differences between counseling and coaching.
Sure. Yeah. This is a really good question, and I think a lot of people are talking about this as more people are sort of wondering like what a coach is, right? And what a life coach, and how that might be different than an executive coach or a mentor or a consultant, et cetera. So there's a lot of language out there, and I'll do my best to, I don't think I have the answer because there's a lot of gray area here, but certainly I think starting with what the similarities are is a great way to go about this, right? And so what do the two titles have in common? So I would say both excellent listening skills, communication skills, both require people to be present, and to sort of set that person in front of you as the most important person in the moment. I think empathy is a really important part as well, especially for the work that I do in career transition and unexpected job loss. Having been through it a few times, I know how I felt. I don't know how the other person feels, but that gives me a better understanding. And I think so empathy is an important skill for both coach and counselor to have. I think understanding behaviors, where they come from, being curious, being observant, and then also, being able to get at what's beneath the surface, maybe the emotional components that are guiding behaviors or are shaping the way that someone reacts. So, there are a lot of similarities between, again, counseling and coaching. So
if I can stop
yeah,
you
sure.
there, just pry a little bit. Where does really understanding like human psychology per se come into counseling that we, on the executive coaching side, that's not part of the training, and that's where we need to be able to say, I might not be the best person for you in this moment. So let's start there. How much more psychology is in counseling?
Yeah, so how much more psychology is in counseling? So I think really, one of the differences, Nate, is that, if you might see as a counselor, you might spend, or you probably would spend quite a bit more time delving into the emotional elements of, what people are struggling with. Now, that being said, there's a real movement towards brief counseling, right? So you might not have as many sessions with the individual, and you might have to, from start to finish, work a person through a pathway or continuum of change in a short amount of time. So, but to answer your question though, from a psychological standpoint, there is inherently quite a bit more, I would say, that comes into play when we look at a counselor and someone who holds that title or that credential. But again, when we look at some of and I just pulled one of these definitions out because I wanted just to run it by you. If we look at, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a really common practice in counseling, right? It's action oriented. Yeah. And when we look at sort of the purpose is to change the outcomes, by altering the beginning of thoughts, images, and attitudes. But ultimately, you're trying to shape the person's behavior in the future, right? And that is what we do when we work with our executive coaching clients. We look at issues of confidence, and we look at things that they can do when they start to feel a little bit shaky at the beginning of a presentation, what they can do in order to ground themselves and ultimately hit that presentation out of the park. So that's counseling, it's coaching. That's where we see that overlap, I think.
Yeah. My focus with executive coaching is around leadership effectiveness, which is your ability to enhance the capabilities of those around you, which therefore is behavior. Your human behaviors, positive and negative, perceived and real. So it's all connected to that behavior piece and really the way you're viewing the world, the way you're viewing that moment, and the way you're kind of interacting with it. No different than a lot of what you just described, whether it's dealing with another leader or someone that you're leading, or about to you get the shakes before a presentation. It's around those tangible identifiers and those sort of moments of clarity of shifting behavior, shifting thought patterns, right?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that comes up a lot, and it came up in our Royal Roads program a lot, right? When the definition of counseling was shared, it would be, focuses on the past problems and not really about the future. You see it over and over and over again. And that's my professional opinion is that's not the entire truth, because if I'm looking at from a counselor perspective, I'm looking at in a lot of ways the same sort of goals, right? Which is to empower somebody and to have them grow in a way where they will be in a better position to deal with what comes next in the future after we have some time together. So it's a lot of similarities.
And where does advice fit in? Just for the listeners, you and I tie our hands, our advice giving hands behind our back as much as possible in the executive coaching role. It's not our job to judge or to give advice, but rather to observe and let the client deconstruct those observations in a way that's useful for them. As a counselor, where does that advice come into play?
Sure. Yeah, and this might tie into something that we talk about, in the next little bit. But again, counselors, coaches, we have the ability to develop our style and to figure out how we want to use that title to help somebody or coach somebody. So from a counseling standpoint, and we know this from the research, coaching research as well, is that if you tell somebody something or you suggest a course of action, the overall impact and the chance of them actually carrying that out will be much less if they come up with that plan on their own. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I bring into my coaching practice and my counseling practice is this concept of, empowerment and having it come from the individual. So very rarely do I give advice in my sessions. However, if there are instances that I can share or things that I've learned that might be of service to my my clients, then I will share it in a way that doesn't feel like it's preachy or or prescriptive, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. For those that make it to the end of this interview, which I'm sure will be basically everybody, and they hear my outro, we mentioned that the brain behaves very differently when encouraged to think rather than told to listen. What's the neuroscience of coaching? Counseling, no different. Here's actually a good segue, because I think that's you're saying even in counseling, even when you have some gold that might be of use, the more the client can create their plan of action, their clarity, articulate what's important to them, the buy-in is much more significant. Yeah. You mentioned earlier parenting and partnering with your wife. Yes, to a question way back when, how is it influencing other parts of my life? It influences all around us. Tell me a bit about that hat that you wear as parent and husband and the insights that you've gained through your coaching practice.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm fortunate, but my wife and I, we just actually on the weekend, we celebrated our 20th year of knowing each other.
Wow.
And so we spent, we spent a night downtown in a hotel, and we're fortunate enough to do that. My daughter was able to spend her first night at home alone with our 80-pound guard dog. So that's, but at the heart of it is really the one thing that came up for my wife on our time away was just the fact that we're a really good team, and I think I am programmed to listen and I'm programmed to read emotion and observe. That's just one of the things that has always been it's been a skill that I've had. So that has been great. It's been great as someone who I can support my wife and really understand maybe what the emotional elements are. Yeah. But then also using those skills with my daughter as well are quite useful. So again, those are common skills to a counselor or a coach, right? And I think one other thing too, Nate, that really I was reminded of is just the importance of being present for people when you're communicating with them. So, if your daughter's telling you about she wants to read you her paragraph that she wrote for English, like you stop making toast and you sit down and you listen to that, because
Right.
those moments are precious. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting the chance to try it with a 6 and a 7-year-old. So they're full of questions right now. And, just answering their question with a question. Well, why is this thing like this, Dad? Why does that crane, why is it long on one side and short on the other? Well, what do you think might cause that to to be a certain way? Just throwing the questions back at them. And I don't know. Well, if you did know, what would you say? And then they'll just nail it, right? It's been super fun. And with my partner, with my wife, someone tells you a challenge they're having, and the pre-coach Howie and Nate, well, maybe not you as a counselor, pre-coaching Nate would think I needed to have a solution. And now instead, what could I ask next that would be useful? And it's a game changer, right? It's in leadership and life. It crosses all boundaries. Let's start to move to wrapping this up, Howie. I'm just wondering, as we look at people creating a brand for themselves, and in your role, I'm hearing a lot of what you do is in the career transition. What opportunities have you seen someone create for themselves as they go through the coaching and sort of discovering this new opportunity from what seemed like a really tough situation?
Yeah, interesting. And sometimes I think this is certainly, as coaches, we all strive to have, or I certainly do, is to, be of value to my clients. And one thing that I know is of value to them is just the expertise with the career and the career transition, and, my doctoral thesis in career development and how people develop, and what happens to their careers and what a career actually is. So what's interesting is that a lot of the aha moments, or a lot of, I think my clients would say that they have come to this understanding that where they're at in their career is actually pretty darn good. And that this understanding, or this urge to leave and to find, greener pastures is really not necessary, because when they really get down to what it is they value and what it is they cherish and what's important to them, most often those things are present for them in their current roles. Right. So yeah, but until you have that opportunity to work with a thought partner, and who's not your boss, who's not your wife or your partner, right? You might not have the ability to unpack that in a really confidential, sort of thoughtful way.
Yeah, right on. And are most of your clients Vancouver based, or are you able now in this new world to work with a wider geographic audience?
We're still, I mean, Zoom has changed everything I know it's changed. We were talking about this, you and I, it's changed things. So we, nationally, we do have a network of partner offices that we can rely on if we need to. We've really found that just tapping into experts that we have on our team that live in Vernon or Kelowna, or that live in Victoria, people don't really, that doesn't bother them. They want access to the coach. So yeah, we're working with people from all over the place.
Right on. Well, if someone is listening to this and is in a stage of needing or really keen to explore new opportunities, how would they best reach you?
I always direct people to LinkedIn, just because it's such an easy way to get a sense of who I am as a person, and just, what I'm involved with in the community, as well as academically and from a work perspective. So there's a lot to be said for just clicking on and messaging me directly through LinkedIn, as opposed to, going to our website, which is horrible, by the way. And right, so don't go to our website, just find me on LinkedIn. I would love to have those conversations. And that's actually my LinkedIn. In my LinkedIn, I specifically say that, I love those kinds of conversations and make time for them, because it's important work that we do in this space as coaches.
Right on. Well, we'll make sure I have your LinkedIn link, and I'll make sure that I put it in the show notes. And I just want to thank you for your time. It was really great to hear about how things are going and how the application of coaching has meshed well with your doctorate in education that we didn't even get to. That's for another conversation, and your life in the world of being in service of others and helping them through what can be challenging times. And it was awesome to catch up with you, Howie.
You bet, Nate. Always good to have a conversation with you. Thanks for having me on your show. It's an honor.
Right on. This was Howie Outerbridge, Managing Director at Logan HR in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Thanks for listening to Leading with Curiosity. Please share, follow, and rate the show so that other leaders can make positive change in the world. Connect with Nate at nateleslie.ca. And remember, the brain behaves very differently when encouraged to think rather than told to listen.